Hello and welcome back to another wonderful Navis Nobilite. Here I am, Captain Zelnick, back from DragonCon, and today we're going to be continuing on a little bit of the philosophy of BFG and the concepts behind developing new rules. And at the same time, I'm going to do a supporter request, which is I'm going to be going over another setup of fan rules that were made for BFG, and I'm going to talk to you all about the philosophy behind it, a lot about the concepts that were used in the creation of this document, and well, I guess we just might as well get started. Now, I do have a couple of announcements before I go on. There will probably be a stream tonight with Mark, the head of the London Grand Tournament, if I can convince him to do so. But also, he wanted everybody to know that there are still 8 positions open for the London Grand Tournament and for BFG, and everyone should go and uh, go and join. There are a lot of amazing prizes, one of which was funded and provided by me, which is the full-size Tau Battlefleet with miniatures made by Deadly Caffeine, which are particularly rare nowadays. But one way or another, if you're interested, go have a look at the London Grand Tournament website, go and sign up, and go play some BFG. Now, let's get on to the document. So in this particular case, we're going to be talking about specifically the Dark Mechanicum. Now, this was developed a good while ago. It's not relatively new, but it is something that was created in the Discord community of Battlefleet Gothic. I do have my name in here. Dread Cassowary is another one of my alternative names, so my hand is touching another document as usual. But moving on, we have this book that goes over the Dark Mechanicum as a fleet in Battlefleet Gothic. And I have not really read through the complexities of these rules before. I only had a very small hand to play. Really, the person who's really responsible for this is Horizon, and a lot of the other guys I only really kind of chimed in a limited manner. Now, I will point out, Nate of Fly By Wire is one of the High Admiralty, so he definitely had a interesting hand. There, in fact, are 2 high admirals who worked on this fleet. So, I mean, it's not official, but it's close. Anyway, the background story is written by Horizon, who is a pretty dang good author. There may be a little bit of translation error because the gentleman is not English, but that's okay. Why don't we have a look? I will read you the lore. The story of Dark Magos Vil Egenius X, or the 10th. The saga of Magos Vil Egenius X began in the dark and treacherous days of the Horus heresy. Long is the litany of his vile deeds, indeed far too many to recount in this grim tome. However, his fall from grace and the depths of which he plunged left scars on many a loyalist world that could never truly heal. After the fall of the traitorous War Master Horus and the retreat of the traitor legions into the Eye of Terror, Dark Magos Vil Egenius X and his ragtag fleet of explorator vessels joined the survivors in that hellish realm. For many centuries, he studied the arcane and sinister arts of warpcraft, binding the immaterium's unholy energies within the forbidden technologies of Dark Mechanicum. Tirelessly he toiled, twisting once proud ships into warp-infused harbingers of doom and madness, where time and tide allowed, he led his fleet on numerous real space raids outside the Eye, ever hungry for new raw materials. Restless for the chance to test his latest creations, he beseeched the Changer of Ways, Lord Zinch himself, for a break in the warp storm so that his dark fleet might once again ply the cold space between the stars. With his acolytes chanting prayers to the true gods, he ordered his fleet to make the jump. Perhaps that most fickle of chaos chose to ignore his pleas, or more likely had some other foul plot in store for the fallen Magos. Whichever the case, his fleet found itself becalmed in a realm quite unlike any other. The few screens of a ship awash with ripples of strange energy, the roiling currents churned violently with the passing of unknowable monsters. Seeing this new realm for the for the opportunity it was. The cackling Magos shrieked at his bridge crew that to get any and all readings they could. No data was to be lost, and nothing was of note missed. Even as his fleet was beset by gargantuan nightmares made of flesh, the Magos did not waver in his quest for knowledge. As his augurs took scans of every minutiae of the struggle, his navigators did their best to stay one step ahead of the bizarre monstrosities. However, they were ever at their heels. With every passing hour, his fleet's cogitators filled with readings on the twisted geometries and dark energies of this strange place, which he eagerly applied to ever more insane and forbidden scientific creations. After what seemed like an age fighting the constant battle against denizens of this deep, his navigators were no closer to finding a way out of this hellish realm. Despite his many discoveries and breakthroughs, his attempts to break out of the pocket universe were thwarted at every turn. In his furious desperation, Vil Egenius both cursed and thanked the Dark Pantheon for giving him these boons, while at the same time denying him the opportunity to escape and put them to the test. Aboard their ship had no recourse but to pool their resources. Let me make sure I'm going right. Oh, here we go. My apologies. Of ghosts and death. Whether through fortuitous twist of fate or the work of the fickle gods, a localized energy flare within the flagship sensor range heralded the arrival of another vessel on what the Magos had come to view as his prison. Amidst the eddies and ripples of its entry, the Magos picked up the unknown and distorted signal. Ever curious, he set the surviving ships on an intercept course, and despite the strange echoes that were rife in such an unpredictable and treacherous place, his navigators finally traced down the elusive prey as the main view screen crackled to life. Vil Egenius was treated to the grainy image of a truly ancient starship, old beyond even the standards of its venerable creators. A sleek warship, almost gigantic in graceful curves, with vast solar sails sweeping out from its dorsal and lateral hull, lay immobile before the something. As those thoughts tumbled through his feverish mind, thoughts of a different and much more alien origin intruded in his deliberations. The Eldar were trying to communicate, although the idea of assembled fleet? Translation error. Despite its age, the eerie light that pulled from the many gemstones that dotted the upper surface made it clear that this was no long-lost hulk. Aside from the ghost lights and power emanating from the ship, there were no other signs of life from within. What was most curious to the Magos, however, was that the creatures that had been hounding his ship doggedly for what so long seemed to give the Eldar ship a wide berth, as if fearful of this new arrival. While the first thought was to board and strip the vessel of everything worth taking, a nagging thought at the back of his mind stayed in his hand. What if the ship represented his only chance of escaping his cage? An alien projecting its filthy Xenos thoughts into his mind was anathema to him. He withstood the ordeal long enough to make contact with the ship's captain, a starfarer by the name of Taria Tunirian. While it was clear the Eldar found communion no less distasteful, she wasted no time in imparting what little she knew about the current situation. Her vessel had been tracking his fleet for quite some time, it seemed. However, the spirits residing in the soul stones all over her ship had become restless and agitated. When it was clear that the Magos fleet was being pulled into the nether realm, she had done all she could to change course, yet the soul stones had taken control of her vessel through the infinity circuit and dragged the ship and her crew after them. The Soul Stones had established a mysterious connection with the energies of the tormented realm, or as the Eldars called it, the dead universe. Within the spirits of their kindred now bound here, the living Eldar aboard their ship had no recourse but to pool their resources with their hated prey and find a way out. It was their hope that between the advanced technology of the Eldar and the crude drives of the Chaos Fleet, they could somehow punch a hole in the barrier between realms and tear their way back through. After explaining her plan, the Starfarer captain disdainfully broke the link to the Magos, and the Magos left alone with his thoughts. Could they be trusted? Of course not. But what other choice did he have? He would work with the alien, but he would have a few safeguards in place that should the Eldar show their true colors. After the necessary changes to the fleet's warp drives had been made, he signaled to the Xenos that they were ready to jump. Sanctuary. At the very edge of the system, a dull flash of the void void lasting less than an instant went unnoticed by the system's guardian. As the pandemonium on his bridge subsided, Vil Egenius X, the 10th, blurted a burst of scrap code at his bridge crew, threatening them with nothing short of dismemberment if they didn't get the view screen up and running. As he limped impatiently across the deck towards them, hand already straying to the holster at his side, the blizzard of static covering the view screen flickered and then receded, revealing a sight the Magos had almost given up hope of ever seeing. Stars. The inky blackness of space. They had done it. With the realization came another thought. Where were the warp dam Eldar? Yelling at his augur servitors to begin full sweeps, he ordered the ordnance officer to ready all weapons. Seconds trickled by as the augur swept the immediate area around the fleet. Nothing. The venerable Eldar ship had vanished. Ordering continuous sweeps to be sure they were alone, he had Kakam's officer relay orders to the other vessels. Not all of the fleet had survived the crossing, but no matter. There were more than enough ships left to achieve his goals. The Dark Magos strolled purposefully over to his oil-slicked command throne and sank back into its cold embrace. He was back in the real, and no matter the year or even the millennium, the lackeys of the false god would know his name and come to fear him once more. With a self-satisfied wave of his tarnished mechadendrites, he ordered his dark fleet coreward. Fleets of the Dark Mechanicum. For millennia, the Dark Mechanicum has desecrated old and obsolete vessels by infusing them with dark technology and demonic energies from the warp, creating new classes forged in the hellfires of the Immaterium. A Dark Magos intent on seeing ever more knowledge and power will have many a mighty and twisted vessel at their disposal, whose damned crews are ever ready to cut a bloody path across the stars in search of the arcane and the forbidden, and woe betide anyone who stands in their way. Special rules, here we go. All right, leadership. Dark Mechanicum at +1 modifier when rolling for leadership, so they have advanced leadership. This is definitely to be expected because this is effectively the Chaos version of the Adeptus Mechanicus. Now, this is a very important thing for those who are looking to make their, own rules. Applying gimmicks that exist for other races so long as they are within the what's a good way to put it? So long as they're within the paradigm of the new race, works very well. Another good example of this is, not to toot my own horn, is the Diasporics, which I made ultimately, which were created by another gentleman, his name escapes me, but then fully modified by me to basically serve on a out of universe level, almost said out of character, out of universe level as a chaos version of the Adeptus Mechanicus with similar upgrades with certain limitations involved. But regardless, let's move on. Dark Mechanicum ship upgrades. Each capital ship gains +1 turn to the basic profile already included in the profile. Just like the Ad Mech, this is a good way to link the two together. Dark Mechanicum uses exclusively dark matter torpedoes. These follow the rules for short burn torpedoes, as found in the rulebook, speed 40 centimeters, and they go out on a 6. Each capital ship rolls 2d6 on the Dark Gifts table. That's going to be fun. We'll get to that. Dark warp matter short burn torpedoes. That's a mouthful. These are the Dark Mechanicum's variant of the regular short burn. For every 6 rolled when it's successfully hitting a ship, the player being hit must make a leadership test on 3d6. If failed, the ship suffers -1 leadership modifier next turn as tiny warp holes jam communication through the ship. So, as far as I can tell, this still causes damage as normal. It's just on a 6, you have leadership negatives, which is interesting. There's no mention of this being cumulative. I'm going to assume that it is, given that it hits on a 6. But regardless, the Warp Rift Cannon. The cannon fires a Warp Rift singularity through space and time, causing horrendous effects. The cannon fires in a straight line parallel to the heading, not in the complete front arc. So it's straight line in front of the ship, using the Nova Cannon template, just like the Armageddon gun. Move the template along the bearing out to 90 centimeters. As soon as the base of a ship is touched by the template, the singularity strikes. Create a warp rift with its center on the stem of the ship being hit on the table with a width of d6 plus 4 centimeters. The standard rules for warp rift apply, and the ship hit must immediately take the test. Note: Defender repositions the ship. This is to be predicted. The warp rift stays in place for the remainder of the game. That is wild and very powerful. After firing, the ship must successfully pass Reload Ordnance Special Order in the following turn. If the test is 3 or lower, the cannon explodes and the warp rift is created centered on the ship itself. That's wild. That is a good balancing factor. That would definitely do terrible things to that ship. The Warprift cannon cannot be used when on brace for impact, all at full, burn retros, or come to new heading. So that's definitely an interesting take on the Planet Killer Armageddon gun. I mean, it's you could make the argument that it's actually a little more powerful because it could potentially suck in multiple ships given the range. D6 plus 4 centimeters, maximum of 10. Yeah, it could take out a squadron. It could definitely take out a squadron of ships. Definitely take out an escort squadron if you get a good roll. All right. But yeah, wild. Cannot be used in any other special orders, but you can use it on lock on. After firing, the ship must successfully pass the Reload Ordnance Special Order. This is repetitive. Test is 3 or lower. It explodes or is created upon the ship. So this is repetitive rules. This whole paragraph needs to be deleted because this is right here as well. Okay. Boarding and hit and run attacks. Dark Mechanicum, unlike regular Chaos, has no bonus in boarding actions. Okay. Escort automatons. With the use of arcane automatons and reprogrammed servitors, the smallest vessels of the Dark Mechanicum fleet have several benefits when near a capital ship. Any Iconoclast squadron receives +1 bonus to leadership when at least one vessel is within 30 centimeters. This is trying to keep your ships close and functioning as escorts. However, if the range of the nearest friendly capital ship is above 30, the Iconoclast squadron suffers a -1. So you're going to want to keep these with your faster moving ships. If no capital ships are selected in the fleet, assume the escorts are under direct control and the above rules don't apply. Now, I think that this should not be here. I think this should be a weakness of the fleet, but it is what it is. Attack rating Dark Mechanicum is an attack rating of 3. Okay. Here we go. The Dark Gifts table. Number 1, you roll 2d6. You roll 2d6. Well, that's a problem. You can't roll a 1 on 2d6. Nor can you roll a 13. Am I getting something wrong here? Hold on. Nope, 2d6 on the Dark Gifts table. That's a problem. Yeah, so I guess we have to ignore Omnissiah Unleashed at Immaterium Imaginarium, unless there's some kind of special rule. There probably is a command rule that lets you move things up and down based upon the leader, the actual structure. Here we go. Let's double check. Warmaster. That's the Ark of Omen fleet list. Let me double check. I'm actually gonna Magus being assigned. Okay, Magus assigned a particular ship which receives benefit from Dark God's table. Roll 2d6, but you add or subtract 2. That's it. Okay, there we go. That is the important piece of information that we have. You can add or subtract. You can't necessarily select, which is an interesting choice. So these are now available to us. Okay, Omnissiah Unleashed. The ship unlocks ancient conductors within its core, unleashing archaic Omnissiah programming. With technology beyond the wildest imagination, the Dark Mechanicum player may attempt to give orders to a ship of his opponent. At the start of opposing player, the Dark Mechanicum player nominates a single ship of his opponent within range of 30 centimeters. Now the opposing player may take a test on 3d6 leadership and the Dark Mechanicum on a 2d6. The player who has the lowest score will win. If the Dark Mechanicum player wins, he may move and shoot with the hacked ship, but not issue special orders. A capital ship will break squadron rules if this occurs. That's an interesting power. It is situational. You have to be close enough, and there's no guarantee of victory, of success, but that could change the tide of a game. Okay, dark matter infused drives. The ship's speed is increased by 5 centimeters and gains +1d6 in all full special orders. However, the vessel cannot move slower than maximum speed. Now, one thing I want to note, all of these have positives and negatives, which makes them ultimately points neutral. So the ability to not go max speed is a problem, and you will fly off the table sometimes. Okay, fickle sorcery gun batteries. All weapon batteries on the ship gain +15 centimeter range with a maximum of 75 centimeters. Woo! And have no right shift above 30. However, if the vessel is locked on, it will suffer a critical hit to its weapon armament firing. When firing, ouch. Ooh. I assume this happens after you fire to to make it, yeah, because otherwise you would never go on lock on. So yeah, um, you get the fire, and then everything that fired is then disabled. I wonder now. I have to point out this also counts by the way it's written to torpedo and launch bays. So it just says weapons, armament, firing. Torpedoes and launch bays do technically fire. So I don't know if that requires clarification or if it's that much of a weakness. So given you can get that great range and no right shift, that may be pretty well balanced. When firing a lance batteries, double hit is scored on a 6, but will also receive critical hit on itself when rolling a 6. So yeah, um, basically you're overgunning your weapons batteries and then they explode, which is pure comedy. At the whim of the Immaterium, the ship may shift 5 centimeters in any direction, keeping the same heading at the end of its movement phase. That's very nice. But it must test for brace for impact and disengage with a -1 negative leadership. Whew. That's a risky one, but it is very good. Immaterial submunition ammo. When shooting an enemy vessel, treat the enemy armor as 1 point worse. However, on a roll of 1, the hit occurs on the firing ship. It's ow. Oops. My shells literally phased through the barrel and hit myself. Ow! It's fun. Heretic Reactor Core. Every time a blast marker is placed in contact with the ship, roll a d6. On a 4+, the blast is removed. Ooh. Go away. Jeez. However, the ship must roll 3d6 when tried to shoot on a target not being closest. Furthermore, it must re-roll successful special order. Ow. Oh, that's painful, but that is so good. 4-up save on blast markers. Ooh. Whew. Ooh, that's I mean, you do kind of get that brace for impact, but the moment those shields are down, that's a real bad day. And also, it's useless against anything that ignores shields too. Ooh. Wow. Okay. Temporal augurs. The ship may reroll any dice being relevant to the ship dice every turn. Ooh. But every time you do so, the ship suffers a hit and run attempt by Zinch. Ooh. Ouch. That's painful. Thanks, Zinch. Predatory intelligence. The ship may make a free 45-degree turn at the beginning of its movement phase instead of its normal turn after 10 centimeters, but must always do so towards the nearest damaged enemy ship and must always attempt to board if it is maximum movement distance allows it to move into contact. That is, again, that's a really nice thing, especially if you have a dedicated boarding ship. I don't know if there are any in this fleet though. That's interesting. But it does give you that maneuverability, which is really important. Malefic Factorium. Ship automatically reloads all ordnance at the beginning of the Dark Mechanicum player's turn, except when on brace for impact. If the ship is unable to launch due to any circumstances such as hitting ordnance limit or boarding, it suffers a critical hit. Roll a d6 per launch bay on the critical hit chart. Oh, no! I'm just imagining the ship just getting filled with, just getting ballooned open with a bunch of fighters and bombers. Oh, that's harsh. That's very harsh. Okay. 10. Increase the shield's ship value by 2. For psychoreactive shields. It can also move through blast markers and stellar phenomena without suffering movement penalties. If you ever fail a brace for impact save on this vessel, the ship suffers a shield's destroyed critical hit. Ow. Whew. I mean, it's so good, but it's so painful. Just never brace. All right, Demon Ex Machina, Hand of the Demon, or the Demon in the Machine, I think. Yeah. This vessel becomes a demon ship with all the benefits as described in the rulebook, with the added benefit that it can start the game on the board instead of in the warp. Should the vessel ever be reduced to do damage, it will try to disengage until destroyed or successful. Okay, this is a really good upgrade. This is probably my favorite so far, because demon ship benefits are huge. Okay, Abominable, and there's really no negative too, beyond it has to run away at 2. Oh no. Abominable Intelligences. Reduce the vessel's leadership by 2. It automatically passes all target priority leadership checks and ignores all column shifts for celestial phenomena or distance. However, should the vessel ever fail a leadership on a double, It will immediately suffer D6 critical hits as the AO goes rogue and tries to kill a crew. I like this one a lot too. Okay. Immaterium Imaginarium. I love these names. Through the various Mechanicum upgrade arrays, and the vessel can create a whirling and destructive vortex. See template 10 centimeters at the back. At the back. Once per turn within the shooting phase, the Dark Mechanicum player may place the template anywhere within 30 centimeters of the Dark Mechanicum vessel, measured from stem to the furthest edge of the template. Any ship base being under the vortex has its energy systems drained. It will lose D3 plus 1 shield, place a green blast marker, per usual, and the next turn the ship may only move at half speed maximum and will have its weapon systems at 50%. Loaded ordnance may not be fired. The vortex generator must be reloaded before it can be used again. So it basically gains a new and really nice weapon. Okay. No real negatives to that. I mean, that's the real amazing benefit of, rolling with 13. Okay, so 13 and 1 are really like the best, and that's the way it really should be. Oh, we're on to ships, and we're starting with the Dark Mechanicum Void Destroyer Battleship at 475 points, so it's cheaper than the Planet Killer. Wu wonders what the Magi of the Dark Mechanicum have unraveled within the eye of terror. Who can tell how many horrible experiments they executed? What might they have done to once proud vessels of the Imperium? The Planet Killer of the Spoiler during the Gothic War was one such vessel of horrific capabilities, but stories are told of an almost mythical vessels roaming the eye. And sometimes they venture into the realm of mortal mankind and the dark and twisted super battleships of the Dark Mechanicum. One such vessel is the Darkness of Void, a vessel adorned with heavy gunnery emplacements, but is mostly feared because of its devastating warp cannon that brings fear into the ranks of the Navy and Magi of Mars. As such, not much credence is given to rumors of its existence. A warp cannon creating holes in the universe that suck entire ships back into the warp is not for the faint of heart. All right, so this is effectively the equivalent of the Planet Killer. We have 475 points. We have a 14-hit battleship, 15-centimeter speed, 45-degree turn, 4 shields, 5 armor, and 5 turrets. So we are a little bit weaker. I think the Planet Killer is 5 shields. What do we have equipped for weapons? All right, so we have 10-10 on both sides for weapons battery, so it's more heavily weapon battery armed, and port and starboard lance batteries. Okay, and a dorsal lance battery at strength 3. So it's pretty well armed and has the prow Warp Rift cannon. So at 475, Warp Rift cannon is kind of adjacent to the Apocalypse, the Armageddon gun. I think this thing's a little undercosted. It's not the brutal savage ass whooping that you get out of the Planet Killer, which is 550 points, I believe. It doesn't have the torpedo the torpedo array, but it has better weapons batteries and lances overall. I guess. No ordnance does kind of drop down the points. It's still expensive, and don't forget you're still going to be getting your upgrades to the thing. But it's a pretty decent vessel. I mean, it's witheringly expensive. Okay, Dark Mechanicum Desecrator Battleship. By the way, these all appear to be the work of Battlefleet Galaxy. I highly recommend his ships. They're very, very pretty. His website is easy to find. It's battlefleetgalaxy.com. Serving as the flagship of War Master Heinrich Bale, the battleship Treacherous was the first of a new class emerged during the Gothic War. The Desecrator was the first new Chaos battleship design recorded by the Imperium in a millennium. Based on the Desolator class battleship, the Desecrator replaced its forward lance batteries with attack craft hangars and added weapons battery turrets to the dorsal spine. Retrofit proved to be a successful combination of the Dark Mechanicum has altered a few other Desolator battleships into Desecrators. One of these vessels, the Eye of the Beholder, has been serving as a mainstay vessel of Dark Magil Vil Egenius X, the 10th, Art X, whichever one. It could be either one. Lost Fleet. All right, what do we got? Battleship 12, 25-centimeter speed, so it is a fast battleship for Chaos. 45-degree turn, 4 shields, 5 up armor, and 5 turrets. Okay, well, obviously that makes sense because it's they get +1. What do we have? Dorsal weapon batteries. Okay, so we have front, left, right dorsal weapons. That's pretty standard for a Desolator battleship. You also have port and starboard 2 lance batteries, launch capacity 4, and proud dark matter torpedo that fires out the front. So I'm going to say this. The Desecrator is actually a very old ship. It has existed in BFG for quite some time. It was, I believe, in Battlefleet Gothic magazine, which being tested as another uh, ship for the uh, basically as another ship for Chaos, because they really only got two battleships at the time. But ultimately, what they found when they were playing it is that it was didn't serve well as a generalist ship. It doesn't really have the firepower to really justify its existence. Yeah, sure, it had good torpedoes, and yeah, sure, it had, okay launch capacity, but the weapon, what firepower of the thing, given that it was based off of the Desolator, just wasn't enough to really justify its existence. And when I look at this at 365 points, I mean, at that many points, why not just spend the 35 extra points and take a despoiler? But in this fleet, I don't believe you have the Desolator, and I don't know if you have the despoiler. We'll have to see. But if it's a carrier battleship, and you don't, I don't know. I've always found the Desecrator to be woefully undergunned for what you're paying for. Oh, we have a Desolator. Okay, well, you have another option here. The Desolator battleship dates back to the very founding of the Imperium and utilizes technology long since lost to the Adeptus Mechanicus. None now remain in Imperial service, but it is known that at least 5 Desolators defected from the Emperor's Light between the 31st and 34th millennium. One of the ancient vessels, the Torment, older still than the infamous Eternity of Pain, was captured by renegade pirates during the Spartan War after engines were destroyed and it drifted helplessly into a mined asteroid field. The Magi of the Dark Mechanicum were instrumental in repairing this vessel. As such, 78 years after its capture, the Torment was instrumental in too many instrumentals in obliterating the orbital defenses of Gory 6 prior to the planet's invasion by Eldar pirates. The Torment has been spotted as far afield as Ultima Segmentum and even participated in an attack on an Imperial convoy in the Job sector of the Northern Rim. So what do we got? I think this is just a bog standard Desolator with the advanced 1 turret and the dark matter torpedoes, and it's 315 points. I'm not going to lie, between these two ships, I would just take the Desolator. I don't see a point in taking this because I'm sure there are other carriers. What do we got? Okay, so we do not have a despoiler, so this is your carrier battleship. Important to know. That's actually good to know. So this actually does have a purpose, so to speak, in this fleet, at least for now. You have a weaker carrier battleship, but it just doesn't have a punch. So anyway, moving on. Dark Mechanicum Repair Vessel. Looks like a modified strike cruiser. As most of the Dark Mechanicum retreated into the Eye of Terror, they also lost the resources of their massive shipyards. While the Eye gave them new opportunities to upgrade their vessels, they quickly realized they needed to have repair facilities available when venturing into the mortal realms to search for resources. As such, several Grand Cruisers, this is a Grand Cruiser? It is a Grand Cruiser, were built into large repair ships harboring unique weapon systems to defend itself and provide repair facilities for other ships in the fleet. What do we got? It's a Cruiser 10, 45-degree turn, 3 shields, so it's standard Grand Cruiser layout. It has a launch bay for swift deaths, so it's a fighter. Has launch capacity 3 for fighters. Okay. Dark matter torpedo, right. Port and starboard dark matter torpedoes. Huh. Okay. I mean, I'm for it. I'm going to be having port and starboard torpedo launchers in my ships too, so I can't complain. Port and starboard weapons batteries. Okay, here we go. In special orders, once per turn, the vessel may add plus 1d6 to a single vessel, add a 1d6 to a single vessel to repair critical hits if it is within 15, or 2d6 if it's in base contact. Okay, in a campaign, the vessel adds plus 1 repair point per battle. That makes it very handy. I take 2. Whether it's present in the battle or not. The ship is armed on port and starboard only with dark matter shortboard torps. The waves of port and starboard cannot be combined into a single wave, which is perfectly logical. Repair vessels are eligible for Dark God Gift. Dark Gifts rolling normally. Okay. Dark Mechanicum Retaliator. Okay, so this is the Grand Cruiser. Okay. This is the standard. This right here is the standard description of it. Treachery of Gallon, the squadron has been identified as part of the raiding fleets of the Renegade War Masters and has been involved in. Let's just go down here because this is pretty much all the same as in the main book. Magi of the Dark Mechanica made it their prerogative to keep these old warships running for their resilience and versatility, which is true. With the addition of the Dark Matter torpedo array, the Retaliator became even more devastating a ship on the battlefield. So they've committed the grand heresy of adding torpedoes to a Retaliator. Now I can't help but say this: 295 points. Same launch capacity, as the Desecrator. Equivalent firepower to the Desecrator. Yeah, this is only 30 centimeters and 45 centimeters in the lances, but it also has a torpedo bay. I mean, it's only strength 3. It's pretty weak, but if you need a carrier, why not just take this? Oh well. Okay, moving on. We have a Vengeance equivalent. Okay, nothing wrong with that. It looks like it's the same deal. They add a strength 3 torpedo out the front. Several patrolling squadrons of Vengeance have also engaged in routine duties straight into the eye itself, either lured their pursuit of raiders or caught in a sudden and unpredictable flare of expansion. Such patrols are never seen again, although reports of Vengeance-class Grand Cruisers supporting renegade raids, Dark Mechanicum fleets, even Black Crusades have been on the increase. True. Okay. Here we go. We're on to the standard cruisers. This is their Devastation. Getting back, the vessel is capable of operating long range. Yep. When the War Master treachery split the galaxy. Okay. Within the fleets of the Dark Mechanicum, the Devastation also took its place as a worthy vessel for any Magos operating in Imperial space. So standard Dev is 190. This is 230. Okay. Port and starboard lance battery at 60. Normal. Launch capacity 2. Normal. Prow weapons battery 6. Okay. So they added a dorsal strength 3 dark matter torpedo. So a squadron of 2 of these would be a significantly more dangerous vessel. In fact, considering that it's firing front, left, right, that is a squadron of 2 of these would be what I would take instead of the Desecrator any day of the week. Points are, would be more expensive, but you have so much better firepower because at the very least then you have 4 lances off to each side and a decent, more maneuverable platform. Yeah, I just take these. Okay, Dark Mechanicum Carnage. Again, it looks like they just added the dorsal dark matter torpedo. This is basically the equivalent of the dorsal 60 centimeter lance that you find on the Imperial, the Adeptus Mechanicus. And again, front, left, right torpedoes are very, very, very powerful. 215 points. Okay, so same rules beyond that. Yeah, so it's standard Carnage. Okay. It has the Inferno, which is regrettable because the Inferno is the Inferno. Again, addition there. It's more expensive at 215. Interesting. The Murders 205. Ooh, that's a fun combo. Giving Murders torpedoes is a little bit wonky, but why not? Okay, here we go. New vessel. I'm using a version of this vessel in Book of the Void 3. It is a light cruiser. It's the dreaded Chaos Light Cruiser. Seeing the need for fast resource claiming? Fast resource claiming, get rid of that S. Claiming the Dark Mechanicum, developed the Hellbringer assault vessel, heretical in nature to follow the path of the Imperial Dauntless Light Cruiser philosophy. Arriving at unsuspecting systems, these vessels can launch overwhelming attacks from both their shipboard weaponry as well as a multitude of assault craft. Once surface bombardment near submission, the skies are filled with landing boats, quickly overwhelming any opposition as they round up captives for the slave market, looting any valuables for later trade, and then departing before help can arrive. It is rarer, but not unheard of, for them to attack void installations they find undefended, bringing such destruction that the gutted stations are generally left as hulks. No matter the target, the arrival of the Hellbringer can only spell doom. So, there have been a lot of versions of this Hellbringer. The worst version that I'm using is closer to another one of its workers that had it much better at boarding. Obviously, my version of the Hellbringer that I am using in the Book of the Void 3 has a lot of significant weaknesses and different strengths. So, for example, the Hellbringer that I have only has 1 turret, but it has better boarding advantages and a longer range weapon battery here. Either way, the modifications that are made that are written into the story to explain it as the different needs for the pirates as opposed to the Adeptus Mechanicus itself, because this effectively serves as a baseline planetary assault and support carrier. It's a cheap support carrier. And I mean, it's really good. I've used them myself, both with these rules and the modified rules, and they're fun. They're a really good little light cruiser. And given you're heavily limited in this fleet, you can't take heavy cruisers. There's a little more room for them to exist. Okay, we have the Cronus class. Now, this is a version that I did not take for the Penumbral Pirates because they already have a torpedo boat. It's the Schismatic, and I don't want to have overlap. It's 125 points. It's cheap. It has short range, pretty weak firepower. Again, decent turrets, nice and fast, and has a proud dark matter torpedo. The enigmatic Coronis is a recent appearance named after the Coronis Expanse. The first Dark Mechanicum vessels of this class were believed to be a pair of dauntless-like cruisers which mysteriously disappeared into the Expanse. The first Coronis class to build an infamous name for itself was the Dark Fate. This ship has been the cause of untold millions of deaths, raiding Imperial convoy, carrying desperately needed medications to a plague world. Rogue traders report sightings of this vessel at an ever-increasing pace, leading to some to believe that there are no longer the original two vessels. Rather, they hold that this class is expanding in frightful numbers, which means this came from the Rogue Trader tabletop RPG. All right, the Schismatic. Now, the thing is, the Schismatic kind of renders this thing irrelevant because, oh, hold on, this is the kicker. This version of the Schismatic only fires at the front because the original Schismatic fires front, left, right. Interesting. So basically, it's just an alternative at that point because the Schismatic and the Coronis are just alternating lances and firepower. Okay, if it wasn't for the scholar Marson writing the much sought-after Book of Nemesis, history of the Schismatic would most likely be forgotten. Now, the Schismatic, and I will do a video on the Book of Nemesis here because it's actually a really good book. It has very different rules to this, but it is similar enough. Fast, swift, and elegant, the Schismatic class cruiser, often considered to be undergunned, proved itself a very successful vessel at first. A few ships were built in the 36th millennium as a fast torpedo boat and raider. Due to ill fate and most likely bad omens, most Schismatic were lost to the warp storm that destroyed the armada sent against Sebastian Thor's forces. At the same time, the technology attributed to agents of the Dark Mechanicum, which allows the construction, was lost in the disarray at those times of unrest. Now the Schismatic has become a common sight against the fleets of the Dark Mechanicum, and I can see why. We'll get into the other Schismatic when I go through the Book of Nemesis. Dark Mechanicum Idolator. Let's see, is this thing actually any different? It's 45 points. It appears to be identical. Rules are the same. Weapons batteries are the same. Nothing really new here. Dark Mechanicum Iconoclast. Now this one gets better leadership. It has the escort automaton rule, so they are a little better, but they have the same rule set because that rule is balanced out. And here we are, Dark Mechanicum fleet. Let's have a look at our fleet. The Magos must be assigned to a particular ship, which receives benefit from the Dark Gifts table. Roll 2d6 per usual, but you may add or subtract up to 2 from the result and receive that single gift. For example, roll 3 gives access to 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So, an important thing to note, you don't get to pick, and you only get 1. So the Archmagos of the AdMech gets 2, I believe. All right, Overlord Magos plus 1 leadership is 50 points, and a Dark Magos is 75. In addition, you may purchase reroll, so you don't come with them standard. Deity Infused may add 1 of the Chaos Marks. Okay, so you can take a mark. Nice. Okay, capital ships, battleships. Now, this is interesting because if I remember correctly, the Dark Mechanicum really does view the Warp and Chaos as basically spicy batteries. I don't think they worship the gods. I think they prefer to use them as a power source, a lot like the Iron Warriors do. But I may be wrong about that. If I'm wrong, definitely comment below, because the Dark Mechanicum's lore is not the most expansive. I'm willing to be wrong. All right, battleship. For every 3 grand through light cruisers, so cruiser, standard cruiser, light cruiser, grand cruiser, you may take 1 battleship. You can take a void destroyer, only 1. You can take only 1 desecrator and only 1 desolator. Okay, a lot of 0-1s there. Grand cruiser, for every 2, you can take 1. Okay, so you can take a repair vessel, the Vengeance, or the Retaliator. Notably, you can't take an executor. You can't take you can't take the executor or repulsive. Okay. Interesting. Fallen cruisers only up to 6 may be chosen. Devastation, Carnage, Inferno, and Murder. No slaughters. Can't help but notice the lack of slaughter here. That's interesting. Light cruisers, you get the Schismatic, up to only 6. Wow. Coronis and Hellbringer. Escorts, you could take Idolators and Iconoclast. No infidels. I think that was a measure to balance out the Dark Matter torpedo in that regard. Okay, reserves and allies. They can take reserves from the Chaos Incursion list. Generate rules are the same. You may Dark Magos has only a Dark Specialism. In creating the fleet roster, select one special order for the Dark Specialism. Whenever the Dark Magos is present in a game, all ships of fleet receive +2 leadership modifier for the selected special order. However, how does this work? Dark Specialism? Basically, you pick a special order and you get +2 for that special order, -1 for all the others. This needs to be rewritten for maybe a little better clarity, but I get it. A special order as Dark Specialism. Okay, I mean, interesting. Okay, huh. Now, the funny thing is, whenever you, the player, are the Dark Magos in a campaign, you are always there. There's never a case where you aren't there. So, yeah. Okay. Anyway, very nice sector map. This is a star system, actually. That's a very, very compact star system. Geez, how many planets does this thing have? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, big dense system with a big old asteroid field. And of course we have the Arcs of Omen, the Balefleets. This was done by Griftifer, Moose, and Horizon. This is the Hulk by Soulforge Studios. I'm very proud of convincing him to put a Ramillies in there. Arc of Omen, Playable Edition. Defense 16, 10 centimeter speed, turn special, shields 4, armor 4, turret 6, so okay. It has prow, port, starboard. Okay, so it has it appears to have weapons everywhere. Okay. With only a few faltering obstacles standing between Abaddon the Spoiler and the supremacy of the entire Imperium Nihilus, the forces of the Chaos are nearing their goal. When the enigmatic demon mechanic Vashtor the Archiphane appears, he brings Abaddon an offer and an opportunity. The fiendish Forge Master turns his specialty into corrupt machines and insane innovation, constructing the Balefleets. Swarms of heretic warships reinforced by the mighty Arcs of Omen. Colossal Black Legion Voidcraft built around the cavernous bodies of Space Hulks, the Arcs of Omen are heavily weaponized and augmented with the means to steer them through the stars. Abaddon the Despoiler awards each favored warband, seated naturally with loyalist enforcers and informants, and he dispatches the Arcs to claim artifacts of mysterious provenance. I think I meant providence, but oh well, whatever. No one knows the Despoiler's ultimate plan for these vast warships and the artifacts they seek. As Vashtor's dark desires, every offer comes with a price. So what do we have? Port prow, lances and weapon batteries, and torpedoes. So it's standard torps, not dark matter. Close range, port and starboard are identical. 12 weapon battery, port torpedo 6. They have torpedoes out the side, which is hilarious. It has the Maw cannon, 30 or 90 centimeters, all round, strength 8, and aft weapons batteries. Okay, special rules. Arcs of Omen are massive compared to the other starships. Should be at least 60 or 90 in diameter because it is gigantic. Okay. Special orders. Acts as single entity for purposes of special orders and may not use burn retros or come to new heading. Ramming. It is considered a defense and as such cannot initiate a ramming action. Arc of Omen is rammed, rolls dice equal to half the total starting hits of all its subsections. So it has subsections. Oh, all subsection characteristics. Defense. Oh, that's a Maniac edition. There's the playable edition. Okay, this is the horrible version of it. Okay, so basically all the firepower is doubled or quadrupled, which is pretty nuts. Defense 48. All subsection. So each subsection, the prow, the port, the starboard, and the aft all have a 16 hits. The nutty version of it has 48 hits. It's 2,500 points. So it's a fleet unto itself. Okay, just to be clear. Okay. Half the starting hits all subsections, which means if you ram it on the Maniac version, you'll basically flatten yourself into it. Movement move their speed in a straight line. They can never reduce. Looks like it moves like a Hulk. So standard rules for Hulk: gravity well it has a gravity well, 5 centimeters from the edge. Okay. Subsections. So large it has subsections. So it's basically like a Ramillies. So basically, Ramillies rule shields and blast markers. Has its own shields. Blast markers are placed. Put them in the contact with the appropriate edge. Damage and critical hits. All damage affect the subsection. This is all okay. Here, Nova cannons and other template weapons can only score a full hit against the subsection most under the center hole of the marker. So nothing surprising there. Should the armor getting a hit in Arc of Omen, only the subsection facing the firing vessel is hit, unless the struck subsection is destroyed by the damage caused by Armageddon. If this happens, it'll strike the opposite section. Same with Blackstone Fortress. Mega Death Shot being used can only destroy one quadrant, and the others take d6 with no hit, with no shields. Boarding. Enemy ships may board any subsection they want to make contact with. The following boarding action is resolved as normal, but it's with that subsection. It may, if the Arc of Omen initiates a boarding action on the ship, it may choose how many subsections to be involved, so it can throw everything in it. But subsections not involved can fire weapons normally. That's important. Okay. Okay. The spine. Command and control facility cannot be targeted separately, and only destroyed when the Arc of Omen is reduced to 0 hits. Okay. Demon-infused spine weaponry, the Maw Cannon. Retrieved from the warp by the demon Vashtor, an Arc of Omen becomes infused with the demonic energies. The Maw Cannon is a terrible warp-based energy weapon which unleashes different types of lethal warp energies through the spinal weapons emplacements. When firing it at a player, we may choose one of the following attacks. Baleful Torrent. This burning warpfire engulfs enemy ships in ethereal energy. Target an energy vessel within 30 centimeters. Treat that attack as a regular strength 8 lance, with the exception that critical hits are inflicted on a 4. Okay. Phlegm Bombardment. Massive mutated phlegm is hurled at the enemy ships. Target an enemy vessel within 90 centimeters. Now, it's hit by 8 hits. These roll against armor, and each successful hit causes 1 critical hit. Okay, so it's it's only 2 ways to attack. I probably could have been a little more creative, like 1 per god, but oh well. Using Arc of Omen, it must be a flagship. It may not be taken in a fleet with a planet killer, an active Blackstone Fortress, or ships that must be used as flagships, like the Terminus Test. It may attack any mark of chaos, but the other ships still can. Okay. This has standard rules. It has rules for victory points. Arc of Omen in campaign. A player may never have more than 1 arc, shocker, in their fleet. If it's destroyed, it's gone. You cannot replace it. Rather than using the standard reinforcement skill, you may in order to add an arc to your fleet, must successfully make a Praise Abaddon appeal, for only he has the authority to dispatch an Arc of Omen to a particular conflict. This appeal requires a 5+ to be rolled, and the order to be granted, and you may only attempt this appeal once per campaign, as in you roll once and then you're done. Okay. So that's a fun thing. Make sure that you be very clear about which one you're using, though. Okay, so what do I think? Well, I think this is actually a very well-designed fleet. Its meta is interesting. I think that there's a little bit of overlap with some ships. I find that the Hellbringer, not the Coronis and the Schismatic, kind of serve the same function. I would have liked to see a different light cruiser here. Just having torpedo battery version is kind of lazy, but still, overall, this is a very interestingly designed fleet. I like their upgrades. They're a lot of fun. The Dark Gift Stable are a lot of fun. If I were to estimate things, given how weak the armor is across this fleet, it's 5 up across. You're going to have fewer ships than a standard Chaos list. You're just as fragile as a Chaos list. It's going to be a lot like AdMech in that regard. You're going to have to come to terms with a more elite fleet, so you have to become very good with it, with what little you have. Because, simply put, you're not going to have the flexibility of a standard Chaos list. Your ships are significant restrictions on what you can take. You have significant restrictions on the dynamics that you're allowed to fly in this fleet. You don't have any throwaway ships. The Iconoclasts are getting there, but you don't have like a Slaughter, which can be sent into an enemy formation and be used just to be a chaos monger. I also couldn't help but notice you don't have access to Oh, there is actually the Arc of Omen fleet list, which is for the Arc of Omen itself. It uses standard Chaos cruisers. You can take the Styx to Haiti. Yeah, this is all standard stuff. You may, and of course, you can take the Arc of Omen as your flagship. Sorry, but getting back to the overview, it's a good fleet. Here's your Vortex template and your Green Blast markers. Those are really cool. This is a very good fleet, and it really does a good job of following finding a gimmick and following it very well. The weapons and the technology of the Dark Mechanicum are generally more chaotic and less controllable than those of the Adeptus Mechanicus, and this is very well demonstrated in their upgrade table. The ships, the only thing I'm a little sad is that there wasn't a lot of let me go back to the fleet list here. I would have liked to see new grand cruisers aside from the repair vessel. Like they could have gone back and bring in the Hellbringer or the Nephilim, not the Hellbringer. There's another, what's it called? I don't remember. There's another old grand cruiser, but that and the Nephilim I think would have been a better choice because that would have made the fleet a little more unique in that regard. The use of the standard cruisers is fine. It's odd that the Slaughter isn't there. I would imagine the Slaughter should be there. Because they really don't have access to anything that, kind of is fast and lethal and durable. Now, you do have the light cruisers, and that's probably why they don't have the Slaughter in here, because that's what the light cruisers are meant to replace. I I like this list. I think it needs a little bit of work, but I really do like this list. I can't help but notice there's no Infidel Raiders, but again, it's probably just a mitigation factor, so there isn't just too many short burn torpedoes on the table. I would love to play against this list. I would love to play as this list too. It's really good. Also, massive kudos to Battlefleet Galaxy and all of the other creators of these ships. They did a beautiful job. They're all phenomenal looking. I absolutely love them. And yeah, this is a great gimmick that they held to closely and did a great job keeping the feel all the way through. And no, it's really good. Now, I would have liked to see a little more lore. There's only really like 3 pages of lore and then the minor lore here. And a lot of this lore is just copied from the original books. I think that they should have spent the time actually I think they should have spent the time to give them some unique lore. Like, why would the Dark Mechanicum select the Desolator and the Desecrator over the Despoiler? The Despoiler is a better ship than the Desecrator. Why? Tell us why we want this ship instead of another more established carrier battleship, especially considering that this ship is underarmed. So, but still, great book, highly recommend it. I would always let someone play it against me. It'd be a great time. But yeah, the next video that I'm going to be doing is from a much older book. It's called the Book of Nemesis, and we're going to be going over the ships in there, and we're going to see a couple of very familiar faces, I think. Thank you all so much for watching, and have a great day.